welcome to Tech Talk Tuesdays with PCA Canada West Region, and tonight we've got a very exciting program with the Porsche Center Vancouver Classic Restoration Program. I'd like to introduce you guys to Jeremy Schwab, the General Manager, and also to the Master Technician, Sean Robinson. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joel.
Jeremy, I'm going to mute everybody, and then what I'm going to do is I'll go and find you and unmute you. Okay, so hey, bear with me. Touche. Sure. There we go. And Jeremy, I'm asking you to unmute yourself. I think you can do that now. Are you there?
I am there.
Fantastic. We're ready to go.
Okay, and then if you want to unmute Sean, he and I will go back and forth because we kind of built this out together. And yeah, thanks for everyone for joining us. It's classics are near and dear to our hearts. You know, last year I was fortunate enough to go through as part of my immersion into Porsche and go to Stuttgart and Zuffenhausen and tour where they do their classics. And you know, when I came back from that, Sean was well on his way to certification. We said, okay, this is part of our business we want to expand. We are fortunate enough that we added a secondary shop last year and said, okay, well, before we couldn't handle them and now we can. So he and I, you know, Sean not only is a master tech, he's our workshop foreman and, you know, provides a good leadership to our team. So we thought when Joel said, why don't, you know, we're part of the Porsche Canada Classic Challenge. And I said, well, why don't we tell you a little bit about what Porsche is doing to invest and support Classic and, you know, why are we doing that? So just want to make sure, Joel, can you see my screen okay here? I just switched it to the agenda. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'll just run through sort of why and a little bit of history with Classic, and then Sean will go through his experience, his journey of becoming really BC's only real certified Classic technician, and then take you through our restoration challenge, our entry last year, and kind of the car we're working on for this year. You know, really the why is that, you know, people love their Porsches. We've got, you know, there's 70% of Porsches ever built are still on the road today. For us, Sean and I are car guys. We love cars, and I think everyone that works for the brand does, from the factory on down. You know, whether they're washing cars, building cars, engineering cars, we're all with this brand because we love it. You know, also, Porsche continues to reissue and re-engineer restoration parts. You know, they're adding a part number to our catalog almost every day. I think last year they had added 300 part numbers. And even if, you know, they're willing to develop an obsolete part, you know, for something rare, you know, you might pay for it, but, you know, they've got something even on their website. If you're looking for something unique, you can submit a feedback form, and the engineering team within Classic, it's quite interesting. The team that's engineering them is actually in the facility where they do their factory restoration. So they're hand in hand with the guys, whether, you know, they've got coach builders that are you know, manipulating metal. They've got paint shop, you know, they're master technicians. It's quite an interesting team and how they really go about it. If you've ever seen any of the Classic catalogs, it's kind of an interesting, there's a lot of stories, you know, that can go into something as small as developing a small part. So if you ever buy our shop, I usually have a stack of those catalogs. I'm happy to pass them out to you. Normally a new members night, we give them out. This year we kind of missed that. You know, everything, even the oils, you know, I know there's some people that will run their own oils, but it is kind of neat. We joke that there'll be a day, we were chatting about electric cars earlier, there may be a day when you'll come to us just to get a gallon of gasoline for your 911. You know, I hope it never comes to that, but you know, maybe 50 years that might be the case. And I think a big one too is, you know, Porsche and our technicians, like I'm part of a larger company where we've got, you know, 60 dealerships, and, you know, you have turnover of technicians. At Porsche, the turnover is very low, but the technicians that started with, you know, back in the MCL days, most of those gents have retired. And, you know, we keep in touch. You know, I think a lot of you may know Helmut. He stops by, Sean calls him and picks his brain sometimes, but you know, there was a bit of a loss of knowledge there for a while when we stopped seeing air-cooled cars. We started selling and servicing SUVs, and then I think Porsche kind of refocused and said, how do we keep the knowledge of air cooled and the knowledge of this, very valuable and important cars that people love within our own walls. So they developed a classic technician certification program, which is really quite comprehensive. It took Sean 3 years to become certified, and even just by going to classes, you don't become certified. Not everyone graduates. So he's going to kind of walk you through what he went through there. And then furthermore, like Porsche does also have their factory restoration. So there's sort of levels, right? For us, we're not, we can offer restoration. Most of ours is really in the maintenance, keeping them on the road. The restoration services, you can send a car to Atlanta and have it built back to factory spec, or even to the next level in Stuttgart, where, at any given time, there's probably 200 cars there being restored really to original condition. It's quite something. I know they don't open their doors often, but if you ever had that opportunity, it's jaw-dropping. The number of, everything from the old Spiders to 959s to 356s in various states. So pretty cool. So I think with that, if you could unmute Sean, Joel, he'll take you through his journey of becoming certified.
All right, here we go. It was actually a tough, long road. Like with most things Porsche, it's sort of treated like the racetrack where, there's no points for second place. In the beginning, when the classic training, I really had to push the previous manager that we had to enroll me in it and do it. Not only being a mechanic, I also own one. I have a 964, so that's sort of I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And as far as the classic training program goes, there's 6 individual courses to start with, which is led by an instructor with 30 plus years of Porsche experience. He worked at Beverly Hills Porsche. He knows Jerry Seinfeld. He knows the Van Halen brothers, serviced all those cars. I think Pete Sampras. Like, if you ask him pretty much about any movie star's car, he could tell you what he'd done to it, how long they'd owned it, what kind of problems it had. A really, really interesting guy to talk to, and so forthright with wanting to pass along all of his knowledge and experience, for the entire brand. It's been a really, I feel fortunate to have been able to experience all this and be able to take in all the knowledge and then get to work on the cars and even pass on what I know to the other guys in the shop that are starting with the classic training program. And then a little bit about the courses. The very first one is an intro to classic service, which covers in depth all the 911s from 1965 to 1998, covers the front engine water-cooled models, 924, 944, 968, 928, and then there is a little bit of 356 and 914 that's included in it. They didn't actually have any of those models to work on, but they did have 2 911s, I think an SC 3.2 liter and a 993, and then we had a 928 plus a 944, a fully functioning running cars that the instructor actually had to go out and buy and bring to the course for us to learn from. And going over basic maintenance, problems to look out for, customer consultations, what are people's expectations when they bring it to the dealer, from beginning to end, even to parts quoting. The second course was for air-cooled 911 engine repair, which again covered all the air-cooled engines from 1965 to 1998. And again, he actually had to go out and buy a couple of engines from wrecking yards for us to come take apart and learn assembly, disassembly, checking different components for wear, and basically to do a full-on rebuild if it was required. Really interesting stuff. If anybody, you know, from their experience has ever taken one of those engines apart, it's not an uncomplicated affair. There's lots of parts and lots of things to look out for when reassembling them to make them run right. And then after that, we had air-cooled 911 transmission repair, which covered, again, all the different transmission types from 1965. So we had 901, 915, 930, and then the 5 and 6-speed versions of the G50, and the 5 and 6 of the all-wheel drive G64 transmission. So even in the first 3 courses, you've got, you know, an awful lot of information to take in and learn, and things to be aware of when you're taking apart engine or transmission. Then next we moved on to classic fuel injection and ignition systems, which covered carburation, all the different types of fuel injection, from MFI to CIS to the electronic DME systems, and then the different type of ignition systems. One interesting note was the German trainers that were involved with this were in the 1970s and 80s were involved with R&D and a lot of their racetrack efforts. And quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's the 911 SC. In that engine, the distributor rotates counterclockwise, and they said from their race experience that when they were on the track, as the engines would wear out, say at like Le Mans, that with the distributor rotating clockwise, it would tend to advance the timing, and you get detonation and the engine would blow up. So they reversed and had the distributor spinning counterclockwise. So as the engine and distributor wore, it would retard the ignition timing. So you would lose power, but the engine wouldn't blow up and you could finish the race. So that transferred directly from the race cars into the road going 911s, which was quite interesting to learn that. And then after all of that, we moved on to chassis, brakes, and alignments. And very interesting with, say, the torsion bar 911s, and even the front engine cars, 924 and 944, that had rear torsion bar suspension, how to set them up properly, the types of tools to do it, and there's all the geometry and math that you had to do to actually calculate it. So if you took the bars apart, that you could get them in at the right indexed angle to put the car back on the ground and have the ride height correct, because you could take it apart and lose how the torsion bars were set up, and then you'd have a car that was definitely not have an even ride height. And then leading into that was also doing corner balancing. So actually weighing, putting the car on weigh scales and weighing each corner of the car, that, you know, even though the ride height may look okay, if the car's been in an accident, the actual ground pressures on each wheel might be off and will affect the handling. So it goes super into depth of how to set the car up properly so it would drive as it was when it left the factory. So really interesting stuff. And then the final course before the certification test was a classic diagnostic test, or sorry, classic diagnosis. So mainly to do with fuel injection, ignition systems, and how to diagnose them properly. One note was on the 928 and how the ignition system is split into 2 4-cylinders. So you could have an issue with one complete cylinder bank where the car would run and it ran okay. Like you'd look at it and like, oh, there's nothing wrong there. But then you try to go drive it and it was like driving, of course, a 4-cylinder, and how to diagnose that properly. We had a 944 as part of the course that had an issue again with one of the ignition control units. And apparently the German trainer, when he pulled the car out of the museum in Stuttgart, the car developed this problem. So when they diagnosed what it was, he pulled the control unit out of it and sent it to the US to our training and said, here, give this to your guys, put it in the car, and let them try and figure out what the problem is. So we got some real world problems out of it. And then the final certification test. So this was basically for the last 3 to 4 years, all the techs that had completed the first 6 courses were given this final certification test that lasted 3 days. So you can think 3 full days of being tortured by the Germans of all these different problems that the cars could have, to basically, if you didn't solve the problems, you didn't go and pass the course. And at one point, one section of the test, I was locked in a storage room with one of the German trainers with an air-cooled engine completely disassembled in pieces on a bench. And I was told, okay, you have 1.5 hours to determine what type of 911 engine it is, what car it's out of, the model year, and then we need you to measure the crank, the connecting rods, and determine what's worn in the engine, and then you need to go look up all the parts and give me the part numbers of what parts you need to fix this engine. And this all had to be done in an hour and a half, so I was sweating bullets by the time that was over, but I did it. I managed to get through all of it, and at the end of it, they said, you were one of the few that actually finished it. So that was a good experience. And then on top of all that is sort of an option is to go do the Carrera GT certification, which I'm sure if anybody's ever seen one, it's quite an incredible car. I mean, it's pretty much the only road going car you could buy that's got a Formula One V10 in it. And we took that car completely apart, had the engine apart down to the cylinder heads. And with the instructor who was teaching this particular course, as this one's held in Atlanta, he was around when the Carrera GTs were first new. So he actually showed us pictures of when the first round of them came in on the ships to the east coast of the US, and they were actually had to go into the boat and drive all the Porsche Cars North America guys, himself and a few of his colleagues actually had to drive the cars off the boats because of how finicky the clutches are, and then they didn't want the shipping guys ruining the clutches when the cars before they even got to the customers. And I think he said Jerry Seinfeld was one of the first ones to take delivery, and the oil drain plug fell out of, out of the oil tank. So he actually had to fly, I think, to Seinfeld's place to look at the car and clean up all the oil, put the drain plug back in it, and then make sure that it was fixed and drivable for him after that. So we really, with their trainers, you really get a lot of firsthand, really good experience, directly from the manufacturer, which is pretty uncommon for any car brand. So I feel quite fortunate to have been able to be exposed to the training that I have. So yeah, in summary, it was 8 weeks of training over the last 3 years, a whole lot of plane flights. I think at one point in about 6 months, I think I had about 20 flights. Yeah, so but I lived to tell the story.
Thanks. And now I think one thing too is, since Sean's got that experience, it's created a lot of interest in our shop. We do have quite a young team as we've grown, and we've got 2 other young gents that are on their way, and our other shop foreman, or our other team lead, who's a long-term Mercedes-Benz tech, he's taken an interest. So out of 23 techs, we'll have four techs that are, I think, not only getting trained up, but super interested in it. Like we talk and we consult on these cars, again, just keeping the knowledge going and keeping the cars on the road. So yeah, at any one time there's some pretty interesting stuff. Like I say, we just had finished up with long-term PCA member Carl Sean, his 356, just fixing up an oil leak. We've got a 328 in there, or sorry, 928 for a full reseal, 993 RS that we'll do a reseal on. And yeah, it's cool. Add some variety to our shop, that's for sure.
And Sean, from you in here, how many certified techs are there across Canada?
I believe there's 8. At the certification we had, I think 22, 18 passed, and I think 8 were from Canada. So
Canada.
The next one would be Porsche Calgary, I believe.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions on certification? And then we'll talk a bit about the Classic Challenge from Porsche Cars Canada.
There was one question from Pete Kofkin. Was the Beverly Hills Tech, was that Tony Callis?
No, this was Alex Bethencourt.
Okay, cool. Pete, you know him? Yeah. No.
There's two ex Beverly Hills Techs that are PCNA trainers. Is Alex Bethencourt and Jack Murphy.
Yeah, it's cool. All right.
Sounds like a great experience that many people have ever gotten. So good on you.
Yeah, I feel quite fortunate.
Question from Jack Habart. Interested to hear how they're making out with adjusting the older cars to today's fuels.
Oh, interesting. I can touch a little bit on, say, Solix and the Zenith carburetors that are in the 356s or 912s. There's a company in Arizona that rebuilds called 356 Carburetor Rescue, and we got some information out of them because they've done a lot of testing, I guess, with the modern fuels, and what they've found works in comparison to, say, the factory manual settings were from, say, the 60s and 70s. So we actually have current and updated info as to like what float bowl levels should be set at to do with the modern fuels.
Nice.
Yeah.
Looks good, guys. All right.
Okay, well, we'll just kind of move on. We'll talk a little bit about our Classic Restoration Challenge. So this was something that Porsche Cars Canada introduced to the dealers when Mark O, our new CEO, joined the company. It was something that he had done. He joined, he really ran Porsche France, and it was something he's super into Classic. And I think that actually goes a long way to some things you'll see in the Canadian market. He's about 3 years in now. So in 18, he introduced this. And then so in 2019, 12 of 19 Canadian dealers entered competition. And we didn't really know sort of how deep to go, how deep to invest in it. But really the whole point was to revive and reinvest in our classic skills. And then, since there's a new program, I'll tell you just some of the details on that. But, let Sean talk about the car, which was just an amazing example of this 88 911 Carrera, which are the rest of the world model. So Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about the car and what you did to it?
Sure. This one was quite the world traveler, having, as you guys can see in the slide there, that it was originally a German market car and spent a good portion of its life in Japan and then made it to Canada. It cleaned up quite nice. When it got to us, it did look like it had been dragged out of a field. I don't know if that was because of it sitting on the boat on the ride over or what happened there, but no major component overhauls on it, like such as an engine or a transmission, but a lot of little things, maintenance belts, hoses, fluid changes, and there was a little bit of paint work and interior work to it, but that was done elsewhere, or I think that was done by Corva actually.
Yeah, so with our first year, really, we had this car was restored for one of our clients, because I think we took an approach of seeing what everyone else brought to the table, and with 12 different dealers across the country and some aggressive dealer principles. We saw Sean and I. We got to go to Mount Tremblant last year for the finals. They did it along with the Carrera Cup finals, so they had something called Destination Porsche. Where all the cars were presented, and then we presented them to the judges, and we did pretty well. I think we got sixth place for our first crack at it, and then we got some ideas, and I'll just show you the winning car because it's just a stunner out of Saskatchewan. And it was 64,356, just impeccable. But the difference here is Vaughn, the owner of Porsche Center Saskatchewan and actually Kelowna, he's got a body shop and actually they just focus on classic car restoration. So this car, I never really saw the inside of his Porsche shop all that much. 2,000 plus hours in the body alone. So I thought, well, it's going to be tough for us to have the budget and time to do that. So when we saw the 2020 program coming at us, and we heard there was new categories coming, we thought, okay, let's think outside the box and let's buy our own car and create, just build a conversation piece. So really the whole objective was to showcase the know-how of the restoration process. Porsche would like to see more of the restoration happen within our own walls. They loved that 356, but they also loved some of the things that happened within. We tried to buy a wrecked Carrera GT, and I came within, Sean and I were about to fly to Northern California to view the car, and the guy backed out, and we thought, wow, that would win the competition.
That would have been the coolest.
We might have bankrupted ourselves at that Carrera GT, but we're willing to take the risk, and we had the owner's approval to do it. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. So then we had quite a range. So you can see there the eligible models that you can choose from. But as I think many of you know, finding a classic Porsche in today's market can be kind of tough. And so they did create some tiers this go around. So you had a tier from 1950 to 73. Tier 2 was 74 to 05, and then tier 3 was the transaxle cars. To be eligible, you have to present a running car. That was sort of the main thing. But these were all of the models that are eligible. How they judge it, there's two components. One is technical restoration, vehicle condition. So overall, that final vehicle condition, the depth of the restoration, how you've documented it, and then there's deductions. And last year, the only deduction was whether or not the car started at the finish line, or at the starting line, I should say. And then the other, if you didn't actually complete it. But now you were actually penalized if you didn't do most of the work in your shop. Most Porsche centers do not have their own body shops, so that's sort of outside. But all the mechanical work, they want that to happen in our shop. Also, there is a deduction for unoriginal parts. And they like the patina. Now, when you see our car, you're going to see that we kind of forego the unoriginal parts just to create something kind of unique and original for our store. So the judges are Marco, then the director of marketing, Roberto, who's director of after sales and service, and then the lead technical trainer, as well as an after sales business manager. So the plan was actually to do this this would all take place in September of this year at Area 27 for Destination Porsche, but not entirely sure. Obviously, with COVID-19, they've relaxed some of the timelines for us. But in addition, they've also added some new awards. So we thought, well, best of show, we know there's going to always be someone with maybe a little deeper pockets to go wild. So we look at things like marketing award, passion award, and even just the classic excellence. So they're all bragging rights. There's no money on the line here. It's if the winning car will actually go on a tour through some of the national auto shows, get an article in the Original magazine. It's almost like a parts catalog that's just dedicated to classics. And then Sean and I would actually get a trip to go to the ICE experience, which would be sort of a bucket list trip out in Quebec. So we found a car.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Jeremy, a couple of questions here.
Sure.
This is from Robin Ashton. How does the dealership in Dilawri make a budget decision on this project, and how are they measuring the return on investment on the project? Is there any money from Porsche to incentivize this participation?
There isn't. Porsche is a pretty KPI-driven company for dealers, so we have a lot of requirements to achieve, and participating isn't one of them. we do this for a couple of reasons. Our ROI is less tangible. It's more about creating some excitement in our team. And when you see what we're planning, the car we chose was something that would have some life and out, like once the contest is done, that we can kind of take this car to different, you know, whether it's PCA events, different driving meets, all sorts of different things, classic car cruises. We wanted to build a car that we could, you know, we're sharing it on social media. We're creating some YouTube videos, which I'll share with you as well, to kind of document our build. But I guess it's the most important thing is getting our classic techs working together on a kind of unique project. And I couldn't blow the budget. I didn't have an unlimited, like I bought, we bought a pretty high mileage car that was rust free. But it was, well, Sean can talk about what he's found tearing into it. 'Cause we're about halfway into it right now. So
Yeah.
what we did find was a 77S. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just a couple other questions here from Paul Young. Once a series gets to 15 years old, like a 986 or 996, does that mean the regular shop doesn't work on it and stock parts only available through Porsche Classic at that point?
No, actually, we do stock service parts for most of those cars. In fact, the stock levels of Classic has gotten quite a bit better. So one big thing that happened in October was Porsche opened a Canadian warehouse in Mississauga, right by the airport. And our parts supply, we went through a pretty bumpy road when they got that online for about 2 months. But by about December, it really got pretty dialed in. So when we place an order by 2 p.m., even on classic parts, they're air freighted in overnight and they're dropped off at 6 a.m. to us. You know, there's something like we were able to get just parts to do a 356 service overnight. Now, when I needed window seals for my car, they had to come from Germany, and it took a week. So I think that's one big thing is the part supply, the large downtimes are getting better. We still are running into some things though here and there that definitely take longer time.
Oh, and can I chime in for a sec on like 986, 996? There are enough of those around that those pretty much get worked on by everyone because they're similar to 997, 987. So we have a fair amount of techs that have experience on all those. So it's those particular cars wouldn't go solely to say just the 4 classic techs in the shop that are working on pre-1998 cars. And I did see a question about someone asking about 930 not fitting in to the competition. It would fall under like the G body, so you could put a 930 in as a restoration project.
Okay, so our car, the G body, we found a 77S that didn't break the bank. I'll tell you, to be honest, our budget was, we had to keep everything at the end of the day under $100,000, including car and restoration. So it sounds like a big budget, but when we're trying to compete, we have to be somewhat cost conscious. So we did find this 77. Actually, James at Scan, we're pretty good partners with him in terms of rust free. I would say, quote, no accidents, nothing that was easily visible, but it had 168,000 miles. It was well used. We'll put it that way. It was well used, and we knew it would be than we had last time, that we could get the 3 guys really tearing down everything. It was very apparent, that it needed synchros, probably needed a clutch. Compression was pretty good, but what we actually, when we put our heads together, we said, what could we do that's just super different, that's going to stand out? Because as cool as this car is and just restoring it, it wouldn't have a super long life, I guess, from a marketing perspective. So we did prepare a couple of videos just with Sean and I. So each of these are about 3-4 minutes long. So I'll just play this, and this talks about our challenge. So we're going to do a part about every month, and so hopefully this works out. Sure, your volume's up. You can...
Hey, Joel, I'd mute everyone if I were you.
All right. I think most people are.
Oh, sorry about that. Jeremy, can you share? Sorry guys, let me just resume that one.
Audio's not working particularly well.
Okay, is it sort of cutting out?
Yeah, just kind of like tough streaming, I think.
Okay, that's fine. You know, the links are in there, so I could easily share those out. But
From Rob Ashton to everyone, Jeremy, you can share it with computer audio and it'll work better. It's an advanced sharing option. Yet, you know, you need to unshare the presentation and reshare with computer audio. Yeah, okay, that'll get.
Tell you what though, if you all want to watch our little series, it's on our YouTube channel, with just Porsche Center Vancouver, and
Awesome.
I know we still got some other things we can show you. Sound fair?
That sounds awesome.
Okay. So yeah, what Sean was about, we were going to show you the gear grinding and whatnot, and we kind of reveal where our focus is. Sorry, go back on this one. So we thought, okay, let's create a conversation starter. There's something in the classic world that's certainly out there, and that's the Safari. You know, the Dakar inspired cars from the 70s and 80s. You know, it did start, the first was the 73. They did an African safari vehicle, and then, you know, right up to the Rothmans cars, and then ultimately, which transpired to the all-wheel drive versions, which was the first 959. We got talking with a guy down south, where I'm sure many of you may have heard, the Keane project. Leigh Keane is a former Brumos driver. He's raced at Le Mans, he's raced Daytona, but he when he got out of racing, he started tuning and building cars. Well, Keane has been known now. I think he's built 20 of these Safaris. So I got to know him just over online, and he's helped us get some of the parts and figure out how to do it. So really our challenge was, we wanted to restore this as a tribute to the 70s Dakar race legends. You know, just that blend of functionality with the style of the iconic RS of the era. You know, and so we're just sharing it, and that's sort of on the ROI. This is actually some of the stuff we used to sell their ownership, was just to showcase and document it. You know, we partnered with some of our existing suppliers. We do have a Porsche certified body shop nearby within AutoMind. We've got 3 of them that we use, but in this case, they've taken on the body of the car. And then once built, we're planning to use it for 2 years, just at events. And so you'll get to see this car, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. I'm gonna play this next video. So here are Sean, Alan, and Andrew. This is how, to the level that we took the car, got it on rollers before we sent it off to our body shop up the street. But yeah, we definitely found that it was not an accident-free car. Sean, do you want to maybe jump in on some of the interesting stuff you found?
Yeah, the poor car looked like at one point it had been knocked on all 4 corners. It looked like it had the forward portion of the front trunk replaced at some point and had some, you know, not so nice looking welds on it. Also had the SC fender flares welded onto the rear fenders, which also not the greatest welding job. And then definitely had been hit in the rear end. It looked like that both rear fenders were, well, out of whack. And then the cross brace for the rear struts also looked like it had been replaced at some point. We didn't really see any damage, you know, like it had been hit hard enough to go and bend the actual unibody, but definitely has been knocked here and there over the years.
Yeah, at least we knew with like through paint depth and whatnot, it was reasonable. There wasn't much corrosion, and so we did kind of luck out there. Like we could tell there was some typical spaces around the sunroof, around the windscreen, and the rear window, but overall pretty good. And we wanted a big project. We wanted to really tear down the powertrain completely. You know, we also thought, you know, the 2.7s, they certainly don't hold their value as well as some of the later G bodies. So that from a budget point of view, it gave us more room to move with. And we also thought, well, you know, that is actually what they started to rally with, was those 2.7s, and what can we do? There's lots that we can do out there to improve the performance. You know, and so, you know, the compression test did reveal it was strong, but, you know, there was scoring in the cylinders. There was a lot of carbon buildup. And I don't know, Sean, you want to talk a little bit about what we did here? This is actually, everything's back now from the machinist, and
we're still waiting on a couple of items from the machine shop and a couple of parts, but the meat and potatoes of it are back. I mean, we have the replated cylinders, JE high compression pistons. We have the cams. Cylinder heads have been completely rebuilt by Hayward Performance, and then he also did the check the case for being straight with it being magnesium, and it already had the case stickers installed for the head studs, so that was kind of an added bonus, but he just checked to make sure everything was trued up, and he also replaced the piston oil squirters in the case. And then the shaft and rods are being done by Alex Automotive, so we're just waiting for connecting rod bushings and rocker arm bushings to get to those guys, and then we'll be almost ready to reassemble.
yeah, and then from the suspension, this is just a beautiful piece of suspension. So we're going to go to a coilover setup. You know, Lay and the team at MCS, who does the suspension for Brumos, they developed these. And they normally don't sell them, but luckily got to know Lay a little bit, and he's helped us with that and given us some tips in terms of setting it up. We just feel like Safari in BC makes a lot of sense. We can't wait to drive it and experience it. And, you know, it's another video. So from a styling, we are following sort of that early 70s. You know, we've got a ducktail on it. We have a nice set of Fuchs that came with it, so we're just going to color match those. Likely, we're going to maintain it white and go with the green accents that would be reminiscent of an RS. You know, going with Safari side decals. Inside, the interior was well worn, so again, kind of with an RS theme, we've got RS door panels. Seats we're just rebuilding. We've got a nice tartan that'll go in the inserts. It's the one that you see on the left there, so it's totally Johnny Canuck. So whether we call it the Cascadian or the Canuck, it's going to be pretty cool. Again, like I say, starting conversations about what this car is all about. And now this is kind of where its current state is. So as you can see, where the flares, actually, I think I looked at quite a few cars, and there's a lot of them that had those on, and we saw some nasty rivet Bondo jobs, and there wasn't a whole lot of Bondo. Most of the Bondo was in that left rear corner. But these guys have been really good. I think their quality of work, you can see, I don't know if you'll see where my mouse is moving, but the brazing work they've done, we had, you know, where the fender meets the firewall there was some corrosion, so that's all been taken care of and rebrazed and filled. Our goal is to have, you know, as minimal filler as possible to keep it metal, because with this 77 being a full galvanized body, that's something that appealed to us, but also took care of any of the spots where there was previous work making sure the integrity is there through better welding. While we were in there, we reinforced the strut towers with actually the original RS braces. Yeah, so from a timeline point of view, this has all kind of been thrown in the loop. Our goal actually originally was to debut this car at the Father's Day Dunderave show, but between the body shop being shut down for over a month, between our parts warehouse and our technician, we went through so much disarray for 2 months. We're somewhat back to the new normal. But so sort of where we see engine reassembly, that was to happen in March, but now we'll get to that in June. The car should be going into paint this week, so we think we'll be starting to put that back together by the end of June. And then we are working with Pacific Auto Trim is on board supporting our interior. So we do have a bit of sponsorship from Pacific Auto Trim, from Mobile One, from AutoMind. And really the goal here is that by the final drive events of the summer, we'll have a car to display and take out and show people. So that's kind of the story of our classic competition. And I see we have some questions. Take a look here. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry about the audio. I'll send you a link to our YouTube channel so you can check it out. So we're going to take it to the gravel for some vids. Yeah, we totally are. In fact, we're looking at I think Sean and I are going to Rochambeau as to who gets to do it first and who gets to. But we've got a guy that's a pretty good filmmaker that lives up the street. So we're just super excited, whether it's to Pemberton or Squamish or taking the back roads to Area 27, we're going to get it out there and we'll use it. Okay, Sean, what's the biggest challenge so far?
Oh, time management. Getting it done on time. Yeah, just the organizing it so when it does come time to put it back together, it goes somewhat smoothly. We didn't really run into anything on it that it was completely unexpected. I mean, maybe finding a hornet's nest inside the headliner. We didn't plan on dealing with that.
An actual hornet's nest.
Yeah, the organization part of it is probably the most time consuming and I guess toughest part of it, just to get it all together smoothly.
Yeah, and I see the question there. Consider clear vinyl wrap. Yeah, we've got Expel on board to provide our wrap, so we'll be protecting it. So we can definitely take it out there. We've got a fabricator that specializes in Land Cruisers that's on board. He's going to just build us a bit of a push bar, for lack of a better word, a bar for front and rear. We'll put a roof rack on it, so hopefully can have a rooftop tent or something. There's so many photo ops that that's what we, yeah, the bigger the mid flaps, the better. That's right. And Pete, you're a volunteer, so how do you want to kick in? We could use some help.
I'm an engineer, and I got a CNC, and I can do CAD stuff. I got a Cayenne GTS and a 911. I'll meet you anywhere. And I can do data and telemetry stuff.
Awesome. No, it's definitely those shows where they finish it in a week. That's just, I don't know how they do it, but.
Yeah, there's no way, especially with a Porsche. I mean, for a small car, it has 10 times the amount of parts in it than like an old hot rod. So the trying to do that properly in a week, I don't know. I probably wouldn't sleep at all.
Yeah, that's not realistic. That's not realistic at all.
Yeah, they're dropping a crate motor in there. Like that's it. We wanted to learn from it too, right? Like it's pretty rare that someone brings us a car to this level of teardown. In fact, it's the first time that we've torn something down to that level. We bought the chassis roller just so we could do this. So see, Darren's asking, what would the market value on a car like this be? It's hard to say. Like the Keen project you supply them a car, and it's generally about $100,000 to build. So, yeah, like Matt Farah has one. You will have seen that car around. He is building one. Actually, Keen is building one for someone local in Vancouver, and he figured it would probably be about 150,000 USD. There's some other ones that I've seen out there. Kelly Moss has built a couple. He had one that was $250,000, but the amount of custom fab in there was unreal. And there was one that ran at auction, I think, that pulled around 100. Some of the DIY ones, they're not pulling value. The DIY ones are I've seen them for 50,000 USD. So yeah, we'll see where ours shakes out. Like at the end of the day, I don't know, we might have 80,000 Canadian invested in it, but at this point, we're not looking to sell it. There'll be a day when we'll have to, like every car, but we just want to show it off. We want to finish it. One day show it off.
Yeah, eventually every car is for sale, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't be in the business and fall too deeply in love. I don't know, it might end up in my garage too, or Sean's. Okay, how much aftermarket do we do? Yeah, we do within reason. I don't know, Sean, do you want to talk about sort of the level?
Yeah, I guess it would be on a case by case basis. We don't do a ton of it, I guess. And again, it would if someone was acquiring, it would depend on what they want to do, what their expectations are for it, and what type of parts they were using. Because I mean, there is aftermarket stuff out there that doesn't fit all that well, from what we've seen, especially that people have done themselves or have other shops do. So
Yeah, like we do suspension, exhaust. I would say we're not tuners. We don't necessarily make ourselves out to be that. And then when I mentioned some of our other partners like James, I know guys that are doing track setups, he'll do that. We do some setups for people too, but
yeah, software wise, we definitely stay away from, just because on anything under new car or extended car warranty, Porsche, well, if they find out, they automatically void the warranty. So we stay away from any software related stuff.
I've always wondered what a 991 Safari would look like myself too, but so how do we harden up that 2.7, Sean? I think you mentioned about the case. That was sort of where the notorious part of 2.7s can be reliable if they're
yeah, the biggest thing, of course, is the oil leaks, corrosion, and then pulling head studs. Luckily, ours isn't too badly, the case wasn't too badly corroded. The case savers for the head studs has already been done, and actually Lance from Hayward Performance commented that they were actually done okay. So yeah, those are some of the bigger challenges with the case, and then we're going to upgrade the cylinder head studs so to avoid any possibility of those breaking, and then
when we did our research, like a lot of the 2.7, the notorious part of it was when they changed their heat exchangers, right? It caused so much heat there that it caused the case to warp, right? And ours had already been fitted with headers, and you say the case actually was pretty good. So
yeah, and then also they wore out with it running hotter with the thermal reactors. They wore out valve guides pretty quick. So those have all been done, and the new valve springs on them too, because they're apparently from 76, 77. There was some suspect valve springs when the cars were new, so those have all been replaced. And with the level of power upgrade we're getting out of it, it should be pretty sturdy. So it's not like it's going to be 250 horsepower. So
yeah, you can get like 190, we'll be happy, right?
Yeah, from what we calculated with the compression and cams and exhaust and stuff, it should be around 190.
At the crank or on the wheels? At the wheels.
It's a brake horse just from the engine, brake horsepower from the engine.
Okay.
And Sean, what do you think it'll weigh in the end? Any idea on that?
Good question. It'll probably be, no, it'll be heavier probably than what it was stock because of the wheels, tires, roll bar. You know, there might be a little bit less weight in the interior, but yeah, it'll probably be a bit heavier.
We deleted the roll bar from the budget so we could fit our kids in the back, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so it is going to have back seats.
Here's a question from Darren. Sean, what's the hardest model to work on, or the hardest problem you've ever come across in the shop?
Oh God, there's been a few. We had a 964 that had it was real cranky, that it would run rough, misfire, not start, run okay for a bit, and then it would start to lack power, stall. Yeah, I would say 964s and probably the 928s with their ignition and injection setups and the way that the cars are wired. They can be pretty evil when they don't run right, and you really have a lot of limited diagnostics. Like that one particular 964, it ended up being the customer had a lower dead battery and had boosted it, and then it toasted the alternator and damaged one of the ignition coils. So by the time, you know, new battery, new alternator, and then it was still having issues, we discovered that one of the ignition coils was shorted, and when it was intermittently internally shorting. So when it was happening, it would basically bring down all of the engine management to the point where, you know, you were lucky if you could get it to start. So that was probably one of the hardest ones to figure out.
And then another question about shifting. Yeah, we do have a short shift kit. You had just shared with me one that you had recommended. What was the? That was another one of our aftermarket.
Wevo short shift kit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, so we do have a few aftermarket parts. We're willing to take our 100-point deduction to fulfill our vision.
Well, things like that, they sort of add to the overall driving experience. I mean, the stock shifter wasn't the most precise in those things, and it definitely makes it nicer to drive. So.
We'll be the only ones taking our classic through the infield of Area 27, right? So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, any other questions from, it's been a good conversation.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Well, listen, very, very awesome presentation tonight. I want to thank both of you for coming on and all the work you're doing, and want to thank you very much for being part of our PCA community as well. And just let everybody know, I believe we still have a good discount on parts down at Porsche Center Vancouver for anybody who needs parts.
Look us up if everyone's in town. Stop by. I'll be sure to let Joel know when the car's back. It should be in a couple of weeks, and if you're around and want to take a closer look, we'd love to show it to you.
That'd be super fun. Have a little Saturday coffee there and a tour of the car would be awesome, Jeremy.
Yeah, you know, with social distancing, we can still. We're just chatting about that. I think we just need to close off that side street again, and that'll give us enough space to host the PCA again. So.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Great, guys.
Before we end,
go ahead, Sean.
I saw one question come up there to do with I think adding modern parts to older cars. I mean, the most common one is the classic radio and the speaker upgrades. That's always a really nice addition to any of the old cars, just to have the radio and the Bluetooth and music playback ability and that kind of thing. That's probably the most common one.
Sounds good. I know they just come out with a Apple CarPlay module for, I think, up to the 996. Have they not?
I believe you're right. Yeah, I was just briefly reading through that info the other day. Yeah. And I think there's. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say anything for the 997.
No, with the 997, the interface is a lot more complicated with the fiber optics for like the sound system amplifier, CD changer, etc. So will we see upgrades for that? At this point, I'm not sure.
Okay. Awesome. Well, fantastic evening, guys. Want to thank you both very, very much for your time and all your attention put into the presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We got a good recording. This is going to show up onto our website, so members will be able to go and click on it and watch it. And I love the idea in a couple of weeks when you get the car back, then let's get together and have a little look at it. That'd be super fun.
Definitely.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Pete, Pete or Darren, I think my laptop conked on me, so I'm on my phone right now. So one of you will kind of need to finish the meeting. I think Darren, you might be the presenter, the organizer at the moment. So if you could kill the meeting here in a moment, that'd be great.
Yeah, no worries.
The world is Zoom.
The world is Zoom, exactly. Awesome,
Yeah.
guys. All right. Well, everybody have a good evening, and we'll see you. Next week, Tech Talk Tuesday, I think it's going to be Matt Stogren and Jeff Rabeef using Dr. Color Chip for just kind of little rock chip repairs, which should be a fun one as well.
That never happens either.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think it should be good. Okay, everybody, take care. Thanks again, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, take care, Joel.
Good night.
Right on.
Thanks, guys.
I see you guys.